can drive my car. Beep, 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 beep. It's time to listen to Mr. Traffic. When you're driving, don't you lose your cool. Who'll keep you laughing? Well, it's Mr. Traffic. He's gonna keep you out of traffic school. Cruising around in your automobile, but don't let him catch you asleep at the wheel. It's time to listen to Mr. Traffic. He knows the answers for real. Yeah.
Oh boy, it's true.
Mr. Traffic.
Yeah, what do you want?
Yeah.
Well, don't just say yeah, what do you want?
Mr. Traffic.
He keeps calling my name, and then he says,
He the man.
oh, he the man. 307. LA Talk 1110, KRLA Talk. Welcome to the driving show. It's Kenny Morse, Mr. Traffic, here every week to make sure that you don't land in one of my traffic school classes, because I am, in fact, the most famous traffic school teacher in this country. I was elected to this job. It was about 12 years ago where I ran for office, and they actually elected me. It was a statewide election. It was a close margin, though. And everyone said, I don't deserve to be in this class. Why aren't the cops out there stopping real crime? What, filling your quota, huh? What, Winchell's closed today? And then they all end up in my class. But I am here every week talking about the issues related to being behind the wheel, buying cars, insurance, what a cop can do, what a cop can't do, anything and everything that has to do with what really matters to us here in LA, and that's stuff behind the wheel. Do you do anything in your life more dangerous than drive? Probably not. Do you take anything more for granted than driving? Probably not. So I welcome you to the driving show here today. We've got an interesting show for you, as we always do. We were scheduled to have in our first hour Patty Pena and her husband Rob Pena, who are the parents of a 3-year-old girl, Morgan Lee Pena, who was killed last November by a man talking on a cell phone. And they were scheduled to be with us in our first hour, but I got a note from Rob Pena last night that Patty is ill and couldn't do the show today, so we're going to reschedule them. And it's a sad and a very tough and touching story. If you are a constant listener to Mr. Traffic, or maybe you've just heard me from time to time, or maybe you've watched my cable TV show, I just came from doing that on Adelphia Cable, Ask Mr. Traffic, which I've been doing for the past 10 years, you might know how I feel about the issues related to being behind the wheel. I'm going to talk about them in just a few minutes, if you have not heard that before. A little later on in this hour, we're going to be hearing from the people from Magnavox, because they are marketing a device. It is called the Mobile 911 cellular phone. And what this phone is this is a telephone that you don't have to subscribe to any cellular service, not Pac-Bell, not Sprint, not AT&T, nothing. There's only one button on this phone. You press it, and it's 911. This is what cellular phones should be for, aside from calling talk radio shows when you're paying attention to the road. You see, I'm the only talk show host in America, at least that I know of, who, before I take your cellular phone call, I always say, those of you who listen, you always know I say this, you've got to pay extra special attention to the road or pull over. Now let's talk. I try to plant it in your mind that you need to be paying attention to the road while you talk on a cell phone. Talking on a cell phone isn't a problem if you pay attention to the road while you talk. Then it's no more dangerous than talking to your passengers in the car. But when people are not paying attention to the road, they're thinking about their conversations, they're engrossed in it. When you see somebody going 45 miles per hour on the freeway, believe me, they're on the phone. You see somebody weaving in front of you, they're on the phone. They cut over at the last minute, 5 lanes to get to their off-ramp. They're on the phone. So the mobile 911 phone, it only works for 911. It also has a 95 decibel siren that you can press, and it's it'll warn of somebody trying to bother you, and that's a kind of a loud siren. So for you ladies who are worried about being attacked in garage and stuff like that, this is a really interesting device. It's a $400 mobile telephone, which I am going to give you one for free. Some lucky listener is going to get a mobile 911 cellular phone for free this hour. So don't go away. We'll be giving out the Mr. Traffic trivia question later on this hour to win the free Magnavox Mobile 911. And by the way, this works on AAA batteries that you know there's no recharging. AAA batteries that you replace once a year. I mean, how is that? So we thank the people from Magnavox for giving us one of these phones to give to some lucky listener. Also, anybody who calls today, if you ask me, I will send you, courtesy of the people, my friends Click and Clack, Tom and Ray from NPR Radio. They've got their car talk show, and they are friends of mine. And they sent me a whole bunch of Drive Now, Talk Later bumper stickers. Drive now, talk later, because they believe, like Mr. Traffic does, that it's probably not a good idea for you to be talking on a cell phone while you drive. So if you want one of these bumper stickers, or you know somebody who you think should have one of those things, any caller today can ask me for that. And by the way, if you want to call and ask Mr. Traffic any question about traffic citation problems, maybe you've got a point of view about cellular phones. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about cellular phones in a few minutes. Tell me how you feel about the idea of legislation which is going to be introduced here in the state of California to restrict or ban the use of a cellular phone while a vehicle is in motion. Our numbers here are 520-KRLA, 520-5752. From Orange County, 871-KRLA. And if you are a Sprint PCS customer, you can pay extra special attention to the road or pull over and then hit pound 1110 and you get right into the studio here. So before we talk more about cellular phones and some of the other issues, I wanted to make you aware that today, besides being Lincoln's birthday, is also National Organ Donor Day. It's National Organ Donor Day. And this is such an important, National Donor Day, I should have said, not organ donor, because it could also be donating blood or bone marrow. This is such an important thing, my friends. The source of donated organs in the state of California has dried up dramatically because of two simple laws. One is our helmet law here in California. Prior to the helmet law, the number one source of donated organs in the state of California was motorcyclists who did not wear their helmets. Since we have a helmet law, the number one source of donated organs in the state of California now is people who don't have a seatbelt on one single time. One single time. The number two source of donated organs is motorcyclists who still don't wear their helmets, or the motorcyclists who have those little Gestapo helmets on, which any cop knows is bogus, and the cops don't even ticket them. And you know why the cops leave them alone? It's not because they're afraid of the Hells Angels. The reason the cops leave them alone is they have a term for it at the police department. They call it Darwin's Law. These people are waiting in the shallow end of the gene pool. This is how we thin out the herd. Get rid of the stupid ones. I might need their organs. So I hope you will consider very seriously. Look, after you die, your organs aren't going to do you a bit of good, but they sure can do somebody else. And would you like to be the recipient of somebody else's organs should you get into trouble? The answer is, of course you would. Well, if you want somebody else to do it for you, you have to do it for them. I hope that you will fill out the organ donor card at the DMV. Put that little pink dot on your driver's license, which gives the police, should you die, the heads up that you are somebody who wanted this. But it's very important for you to also know that your family can override your issues. And your feelings when it comes to organ donation. The pink dot is not enough. You actually have to have in writing that you do not want your family to be able to override your desire to have your organs donated. So, because there are actually cases of this where the families go, oh, no, we don't want that. We don't want our loved one cut into and have the organs. We want them buried intact. Stupid. And speaking of stupid, I issued an editorial this week. It was actually picked up by the Associated Press, and I'm going to read it to you. This is something I rarely do. If you listen to the driving show, I rarely read stuff like this. But I thought this was kind of important, and I want to share it with you. On January 31st, Alaska Air 261 dropped from the skies, and 88 souls perished. On January 31st, approximately the same amount of souls perished on the roads of America, just as senselessly, and a majority of them, they'd be alive today had they simply been wearing their seatbelt when the unexpected occurred. That was not a headline. On January 23rd, a few days before, there was no plane crash to make the headlines that day, but it was another day where all too many lives were shattered by vehicle crashes, and one of them was on an icy Kansas City road where NFL linebacker Derek Thomas was driving too fast and he lost control of the vehicle. It flipped 3 times, as sport utility vehicles are prone to do. He was thrown from the vehicle along with passenger Michael Tellis. simply because they didn't have the brains to be wearing a seatbelt this one time. The only person in the vehicle who was, their passenger in the back seat, walked away from the crash with scratches. Scratches. Typical. That's typical. All the papers say Derek Thomas was a great guy and that his loss is so deeply felt. Well, in America, we have an obsession with fame and as a barometer of personal worth. And ask any of the families of the other tragedies that happened on January 23rd, or the plane crash, or the tragedies on the road on January 31st, if their loved ones are mourned any less because we never saw them on television or a football field. In this new century, as it was in the last 10 years of the last century, it's politically incorrect to tell anybody that they are stupid, or dumb, or selfish. Well, Bill Maher is totally right. Screw political correctness. Derek Thomas was stupid to a degree that only his family and friends can gauge at this point. The loss of his life and that of Mr. Tellis, it's a loss to more than just their families and friends. To paraphrase a famous quotation, the death of any person lessens us all. It's just some are dumber demises than others. Princess Diana, Dodi Fayed, they would be alive today if they had been wearing their seatbelts. Dumb. Her death made a whole world cry. Selfish. Some libertarians yell and scream that it's their right to hurt themselves and that the only person that they are hurting is themselves and that these laws requiring these restraints are intrusive. Stupid. What's intrusive is how all of our lives are changed today by these losses, and it's just not acceptable to accept that tomorrow will be just another day of loss on our highways by this conscious lack of common sense. I can only hope that the latest obviously preventable death of one famed individual will make one other human being think twice about this act of selfishness, because it's the biggest lie ever told, that the only person I'm hurting is myself. Buckle up every single time, especially on short trips, because if you're laying in a hospital bed because you survived the vehicle crash, will you say, "It was worth it"? No, you're going to say, "How could I have been that stupid?" Rarely do you hear me read stuff like that, and but the death of Derek Thomas really, the height of stupidity. Let's take a quick break, and then we are back. Mr. Traffic is on his soapbox today. You don't hear me up on the soapbox that often. Let's take a break for some traffic and find out what's going on the roads with Julie Rogers. Hey,
I'd like that Bruce Meyer with that phony toupee he wears all the time. Hello, Bruce.
Oh, my
Jay Leno!
I can't believe
It's Jay Leno.
Oh, man, he is my idol. You know, Jay is the man. You know, we enjoy each other's cars. We enjoy sharing the hobby.
You know, it's like white swapping.
Have you guys ever traded cars with each other?
No, you can't do that.
You can't.
No, you can't let somebody else drive it. Stop.
Really, I mean, it doesn't.
You generally don't. I mean, as somebody like Jay, I mean,
Bruce has taken me out in a lot of his Goldwing Mercedes, and geez, he's got a lot of stuff that's the Jag and all kinds of different, unusual kind of cars. So, and I know he's been in mine. So, I mean, it's you don't have to borrow somebody.
What is your favorite car of Bruce's collection?
Right. Well, he's got a lot of good ones. He's got that D-Jag, which I really like. That's one of the all-time great cars.
What year is that?
Great history, great car. A lot of cars that have one aspect, maybe a great history, but they're not that much fun to drive. And then there are other kind of cars that have another variation of that. But his D-Jag is one of the greatest cars ever built. It's really fun to drive. It's an easy car to drive. It's a looker. It's got all the elements.
What year is that?
1955.
Mm-hmm.
55, yeah.
And what car does Jay Leno have that's your favorite of Jay's collection?
I've got a pea green 50 Plymouth. Trying to get away from. I got it from a guy who, some person said some aunt gave it to him, some ungrateful punk, and I got it.
You have a car that of
if
Jay's?
you go into Jay's garage, you would think it's probably a dozen people collecting there. I mean, he goes off in so many tangents, and he's such a gearhead, and he loves it all.
Anything that rolls and explodes.
That's right. I mean, he has steam
you have a Pinto
cars.
too?
He has steam cars, antique cars, wonderful Bugattis, and one of my favorite cars of Jay's is his Mercer. That car.
Oh, a Mercer.
It is like one of the first kind of production car race cars, and Jay's is yellow and just, I don't know, that car just...
Yeah, they're kind of neat. They're a lot of fun.
Listen, with the advent, I don't know whether either one of you know this, but as of July 1st here in California, the low emissions vehicles, or zero emission vehicles, for instance, a Honda Accord, which is classified as a low emissions vehicle, or one of the new hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles, they're going to be allowed to use the carpool lanes after July 1st because they're trying to stimulate. And Jay, speaking of steam cars, kind of reminded me. How do you guys feel since you are the car enthusiasts supreme? And by the way, Jay won the Meguiar's Award in '97. What do you guys think the power plant of this millennium is going to be?
Power plant of the millennium. Well, I think it'll continue to be internal combustion engine.
You do.
Maybe running on hydrogen, or maybe running on natural gas. I always tell people, if you're looking for stocks, not internet, find companies working with hydrogen, because I think that'll be the next thing.
Very interesting. Bruce, do you feel that?
I would say the internal combustion engine, I think a lot of the manufacturers are pushing hard towards electric, the EVs and so forth.
I don't think the electric car, I've got a 1909 Baker electric car. You charge it, it goes 80 miles on the charge.
What kind of batteries does it have?
It has, it's a standard lead acid.
Right.
Yet, I borrowed an EV1 from General Motors. It went 80 miles on a charge.
That's right. They gave me one too. Yeah.
They're a lot of fun. They're nice, but in 100 years, you really haven't gone that far.
Right, and the new generation of EV1, they have the Gen 2 out right now, which General Motors is actually giving me next month in order to evaluate. It gets about 125 to 150 miles on the charge.
They're okay. They're interesting, but I don't think they're viable. People want something that can, if it can't do what the car already has better, why bother?
That's true.
Whereas with hydrogen or natural gas, you can have all the same convenience you have now with no emissions.
Right.
People will be environmental unless it costs them 11 cents more. And then suddenly, there's nothing funny to me than seeing environmentalists pull up in a Ford Excursion.
Well, as we were talking about in the last year about the Ford Excursion. Hey, Jay, do you have to run, or can you stick with this for a few more minutes?
Actually, I do have to run.
Okay.
I have a steam car percolating.
He's got to get that Plymouth out and running.
Over the side of the road to call and put in a good word for Bruce's great aunt. So.
Oh, you're the best. You are the best, Jay.
Jay Leno, thanks so much.
Bye, Bruce. Good luck.
And thanks. We enjoyed your show last week.
And by the way, just so you know, Jay Leno was the first guest I ever had when we started here in December of '98. I said, who would be the right guest to be? Jay Leno was my first guest.
He is so worthy.
Well, thanks, you guys. See you later.
All right. Take care, Jay. Jay Leno.